we will go ahead and call the April 22nd, 2025 Indianola Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order at 6:00 p.m. Roll call.
All right, Marmon?
Here.
Ritchie? Here. Harris?
Here.
Wordman? Here. Darling? Stecker? Weiss?
Here.
Nate? Piper?
Here.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda for this meeting, April 22nd, 2025.
I'll make a motion to approve today's agenda.
Second.
Yes, Al has a question.
Yes, I do. Is it appropriate to add an item G to new business
For
this time
what?
for discussion?
Just generally, is it appropriate to add a new item? I don't think we have
I don't
that
know.
before it, perhaps before any of us.
Would it need to be added to like public comment or?
Could we have the discussion if it isn't on the agenda? No action.
You can have a discussion before you make the official roll call for the agenda approval. As for adding an agenda item, I think you do that the day of the agenda.
It doesn't have to be on the agenda as long as we can have the discussion without it being on the agenda. But there will be no, I'm not asking for the action, just a discussion.
Yeah, you can discuss it as a group prior to the roll call of the agenda.
Or can that take place at public comment?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
Or can it take place at the end of new business?
We can do that too.
That's what I would prefer if we could.
I'll just save it for the end of the meeting then.
Or during,
Rather than
like
new
during the
business
comment
being
section?
comments.
Yeah.
7.
Sure.
That's
Okay. So then we have a motion and a second
On today's agenda.
on today's agenda. Okay. All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay. Then we have minutes approval. So our last meeting was March 25th, 2025. If anyone has any questions, comments, or would like to make a motion on the minutes?
Move approval.
I'll second.
All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? All right, and then public comment. This is public comment for anything that is not on the agenda. Not look like anyone is here for anything that is not on the agenda. So we will move on to new business. And item A under new business is the approval of the plat of survey for parcel B of parcel A of Indianola Industrial Park Lot 11.
Thank you. So the owner and applicant in this case is That Cam Incorporated, Camrick LLC, represented by Matt Thomas with V&K Engineering. He's a public land surveyor, or professional land surveyor, sorry. The applicant is requesting approval of a plat of survey to split an industrial lot into 2 lots. The property is located at 1400 East Iowa Avenue, a little bit to the east of Highway 65, 69. The property as a whole contains about 2.44 acres. It's the area outlined in red in the screen. It is currently zoned M2 General Industrial. The subject parcel was platted in 1972 as part of Indianola Industrial Park. And the parcel as a whole, as it exists now, is parcel A of lot 11 of that plat. Currently, the property has 2 buildings on it that are separated by 10 feet. All the bulk regulations are currently being met as the site is developed today. The owner wishes to sell the east building, to sell it, and so he needs to split the lot in half. The tricky part of this was, once you split that lot in half, the setbacks are not met anymore. So we sought a variance from the Board of Adjustment, who approved that side yards, the interior side yard setback variance. Theoretically, or realistically, there should be 40 feet between the two. But the applicant sought 15 feet side yard setback on both buildings. So each lot will have a 5-foot interior yard setback instead of 20 feet. So the board has approved that without any issues. I included that stuff into your packet for review. The final platted, or the platted survey identifies, again, splitting off the west half of or the east half of that lot. Parcel A would be 1.31 acres in area, and parcel B 1.13 acres in area. All other bulk regulations will be met in terms of open space, setbacks, building heights, and things of that nature. 70 by 70 ingress egress easement is shown on the west side of the site, and that's in case spacing requirements from SUDAS don't permit the installation of a secondary driveway into that site. So they've included that ingress egress easement for now to allow access and EMS access and things like that to access that other building. The use of parcel B will remain industrial in nature. With that, and with Board of Adjustments approval for that setback variance, staff recommends approval of the platted survey. Happy to take any questions. I'm not sure if anyone is in attendance for you. Okay. So happy to take any questions.
I'd like to make a motion to move approval of the plat of survey for parcel B of parcel A.
I'll second.
Marmon,
Yes.
Ritchie,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Wordman,
Yes.
Vice,
Yes.
Piper.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right. Item B is approval of vacation of storm sewer easement in Emerald Bay Plat 1.
So I'll be presenting on the next two items as one as they correlate to both with Emerald Bay. The owner and applicant in this case is Emerald Bay LLC, represented by Wally Pelds with Pelds Design Services. The applicant is requesting approval of a final plat for a commercial and residential subdivision located, south of East Trail Ridge Avenue and west of North Jefferson Way. The new plat, or the revised plat, contains about 9.63 acres. It really just includes the applicant, or I'm sorry, the developer has a tenant interested in this parcel here. So if you remember from the original Emerald Bay plat, this was 2 lots. So that lot line will be moved to the west. And then the stormwater detention pond that was going to take up this area will now be contained in all of this area here. And then this property line for the apartment buildings has been shifted to the north just a little bit. And that's just to to satisfy the needs of the potential developer who wants to come in and build on that lot. So the lots range in size from 0.46 acres to 4.03 acres. Those two numbers relate to this lot here, and then the multifamily lot to the north there. Due to Lot 1 increasing in size, there was a storm sewer easement, and that needs to be vacated. That storm sewer easement will be shifted slightly to accommodate the new use. So that's the second aspect to this project. Outlot W will still contain the parkland component of it with the pond and those amenities and the trail and things like that. Nothing is changing on the exterior borders of the lot. It's just some interior modifications that are being shifted there. East Trail Ridge Avenue is currently under construction, and then soon after that, Scenic Valley will be under construction. The utilities will remain the same with the exception of that storm sewer easement being revised. The final plat is in general conformance with all our subdivision ordinances and comprehensive plan. So happy to take any questions. We do recommend approval of the storm sewer easement vacation and the final plat for Emerald Bay Plat 2, subject to any remaining staff comments, and we're happy to take any questions. Also, Wally Pelds is here as well.
there was a question back there. I don't know if any commissioners have questions.
I just have one question. This will take two motions, right?
2 motions, 2 votes, yeah.
So the new lot, which used to be 2 lots, is it going to be all commercial?
It's a commercial retail use.
But were the 2 lots commercial?
Yes.
I thought one of those was residential.
You want me to speak on that? I can real quick. Jesse Rognus, 12509 Fulton Street, Indianola. You're correct. One was part of the parks. We shifted the parks area. We increased the commercial to accommodate the new customer. And we actually made the park area bigger than it was before. And so the area before that was gonna be the green space for the park, which was like right in here. We shifted it over to here, got rid of a few of the townhomes or row homes that we were gonna build and made it here. And then the trails all stayed the same, but we actually increased the size of the park area a little bit too. So overall, the park is getting bigger, but we're stretching the commercial lot to accommodate that customer. We're just kind of swapping stuff around.
But if lot 1 was 2 lots, and one of them was commercial and one of them was something other than commercial, why aren't we doing a rezoning?
The whole thing is zoned as PUD, so you'd have 20 acres of PUD and 1 acre of something different. That doesn't make sense. The whole PUD concept is to allow these different types of mixed uses within the same development. It's essentially making the same lot. This lot here.
What was gonna be on that left-hand side of lot 1?
What's gonna be over here now?
Originally, what was gonna be?
Park area.
The park area is now shifted and making the outlot larger. So more parkland, more space, more green space.
And we don't notify the public when there's going to be a change to a PUD?
It's just a change to the final plat. They're not changing the zoning. Final plats don't require noticing.
Well,
It's all interior too. It's not affecting anybody else.
well, yeah, it is. It affects the neighbors because instead of a park now, it could be commercial there.
They're
You
actually
could-
getting
you-
more park area, bigger. I'm actually increased the size.
Yeah, but I mean, next to the people who front on Hillcrest, what would have been a park behind them now could be commercial. Is that correct?
No, because there's still the,
No,
There's
there's
still a
still all
buffer.
of this. This is the property line between Hillcrest and here. So that lot is not changing.
Okay,
It's the other side of the road. That's why I'm saying it's all interior. There's nothing touching anybody else's property.
Thank you.
Nothing that's been sold. It's all stuff we have.
thank you.
Yep. Does that make sense now?
Yep.
Yeah, I can see how it can be deceiving here because you're looking at the outline here, thinking this is the edge. Really, this is the property line between them. Nothing changes there.
So townhomes will still be along there?
residential.
One commercial lot, that's always been there,
Yeah?
and then the multifamily.
Okay.
Yep, all that stays the same.
I got a question that kind of just follows up on that with the PUD. So like, is there anything inside the PUD that says, you know, as these changes get made, like that, you know, for that, all that interior stuff, can all that be commercial? Or is like some set percentage have to still have housing on it?
I think we'd have to revisit that. If the concept plan changes that dramatically, it was something we'd have to revisit internally and bring back
Okay.
to you for review.
Just curious.
Yeah, part of what we did just to not have that controversy is we took out of the apartment ground, which was, you know, a different type of multifamily and made that smaller, made the whole parks area bigger and kind of figured, hey, we're giving even more parks ground. And it accommodated some additional amenities after meeting with the parks guy. He was wanting maybe even to look at future having a bathroom there, a pavilion of some sort. So it kind of all made sense together to do it that way.
Yeah, I mean, commercial brings more than residential anyways, money wise, so it's easier to put more park because park don't bring money, so.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, conceptually, this lot, even though it's changing from 2 to 1, remains commercial. You know, this remains park. These all remain their original uses per the approved PUD.
So taking the storm sewer easement out, where's the storm sewer gonna go?
Yep, so originally that storm sewer easement was gonna cut through here between the two property lines. We moved it right here on this one, so it's just basically shifting it to the west to, make sense where it's at, so it's not running through the middle of a property line and creating future maintenance issues.
It is a recorded easement, so it has to be officially vacated through an ordinance, or through a resolution with the city.
I just have a question about the labeling. So in the narrative, it references plat 1, lot 5, but this is lot 1. Can you just illustrate to me where lot 5 was? So lot 5 was the parkland area before? I just couldn't find lot 5 on what was in our materials.
Yeah, it's probably, this was called lot 5 then, yep.
Okay.
This lot is,
Yeah.
is now lot 1 of Emerald Bay Plat 2.
Yeah, and it used to be like lot 1 and lot 5? That's what I was just trying to.
Yeah, here used to be the old property line right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I was understanding with how the narrative was. I think we had are there other questions from the commissioners? Because we also had a public question. Okay, come on up.
Mike Cash, 110 West Hillcrest. So I hear a lot of, finalizing land lines and you know what I mean? I just want to make sure, because I come home from work probably a month ago, you guys did it, and there's lath in my yard, 2 foot in on my fence line with property line, lot line written on it. So I hired a surveyor who came in, found the monuments, pulled the property line, which not 2 foot encroaching on them, I'm actually 6 inches on them, and they've got about 6 inches of me on the east side. So I don't know if they're trying to make those lot lines legally their lot lines, because if it is, I mean, we gotta
No,
stop
there's
it.
a way bigger issue here, and you have talked with Wally about this.
Yeah, we need to use monuments, right?
And I've talked to other neighbors too, but I'm not, what's that?
Not me.
Not
No,
you.
nobody's approached me since.
No,
they
I'm
come
setting
in
up
my
a
yard.
meeting, Sue's kind of ringleading that, but I'm setting up a meeting
Sue
with
has
all
no
the.
idea, but anyway, go ahead.
Okay, well, anyways, that's a whole different separate issue, nothing to do with this. And at the end of the day, whatever that property line is, I paid for one thing. They're saying another thing. There's somewhere in the middle here where we've got to figure that out, but it's not this issue, and we're not
Well, I
talking about
just don't want, I don't want
replanting
nobody to lay any property lines down when my guy found the monuments and your guy's going off your deed.
that. Okay,
So
it's not
we're
about,
not
it's
changing-
not
Jeff
about
with a
that.
question.
This is not about
Does
that.
that need to be resolved before a final plat is approved?
Yes, ma'am.
That's already,
The final plat for Plat 1's already.
It's already approved.
Already
recorded.
approved.
This is
Yeah.
Plat 2 for the interior lot.
that's a legal issue, and I'll just tell you guys so you can hear from me. I'm not going to battle them over where he says the line is and he says the line is, because it goes back like 50 years, and we'd end up in court cases,
But
spending
since
thousands of
1960
dollars.
Since 1960, they've been pulling off that monument. The DOT pulled off the monument, and your guy pulls off your north side and says it matches your deed.
Okay, but I'm not gonna get in a legal battle
I'm just
right
telling
here,
you.
right now.
I'm just telling you.
Because at the end of the day, I paid for that ground, but I'm not going
I paid
to,
for my ground too, though, and it pulled off a lot line.
I'm not going to fight for that anyways. He just doesn't know yet because we haven't had that meeting, but I'm just saying, anybody that's past that line, if they have stuff encroaching further past that line that Matt and Wally agree on, we're gonna talk about that, because that's a whole nother issue on top of that issue. But there's multiple things going on there not tied to this.
Jesse, I think just for clarification, they're the lots that are to the south of what we're talking about tonight. Again,
Yeah, so these lots here, we staked the lot line. It's about 2 foot off of the lot line that Matt has. Whoever's right around there, I don't even care, because I just want it resolved before I go and sell to the next guy who maybe has way more money than me and does care and is gonna fight it.
Yeah.
I don't.
just for public,
I'm
just
gonna
for public
call Matt's
awareness,
line,
what
as
we're
long as
talking about
Wally
tonight
agrees on
is.
it, the line. Whoever is more than that outside of there right now, which there are a few people, I'm gonna ask them guys in that meeting to, hey, can we talk about either you guys moving your stuff back to this line that Matt agrees is the right line? Or do you wanna buy another foot or two before I go through this whole process again and maybe replat that line? So that's a meeting that's not for today, though.
Yes.
That was what I was.
At this point, it's
That's
essentially a
why I was
landowner
just
dispute.
verifying.
It
I was
is
just making
not
sure that I was
in
in the right
our
spot.
purview.
Yeah, this isn't
Yeah,
related.
it has nothing to do
All
with that.
interior.
Maybe you should communicate, boss.
I do.
No, you don't. I've never seen you.
Okay. I don't think this is the time or place or the way to do it either.
We can go
I haven't
outside and
been
talk if you want.
disrespectful to you, so.
Questions
Are
from the
there any
commission?
other questions on the 2 item agendas that are in front of us this evening? Is there anyone who would like to make a motion?
To clarify.
I'm sorry, we need 2
Okay.
separate motions.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah.
You bet.
So the first motion would be approval of the vacation of the storm sewer easement in Emerald Bay Plat 1.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the vacation of the storm sewer easement on Emerald Bay Plat 1.
I'll second.
Piper,
Yes.
Vice,
Yes.
Wordman,
Yes.
Ferris,
Yeah.
Richie. Yes. Mormon.
Yes.
And then the next item pertaining to this parcel is approval of a final plat for Emerald Bay Plat 2.
I'll make a motion for approval of final plat for Emerald Bay Plat 2.
I'll second. Wordman,
Yes.
Mormon,
Yes.
Richie. Yes. Ferris,
Yep.
Piper,
Yes.
Vice.
Yes.
Thank you.
So the next item on the agenda is approval of final plat, and it looks like these 2 are tied together again. Final plat for Simpson Athletics Plat 1, and then also approval of a site plan for Simpson Athletics Training Competition Facility.
The owner and applicant in this case is Simpson College, represented by tonight it'll be Monty Applegate with Snyder and Associates. And they're requesting approval of a final plat and a site plan for a new athletic facility on West Iowa Avenue at their current practice location. The reason I enlarged the bubble tonight, it has to do with the way these lot lines kind of extend out into the public right of way. So keep that in mind for later on in the presentation. But the address for the new facility has been assigned 805 West Iowa Avenue. The parcel as a whole contains approximately 18.85 acres, but the developable area is just under 3. So we use that calculation when doing landscaping. Because if they were to use 18 acres of open space calculations, that would be covered in trees and no place for, practice fields and things like that. The property is zoned R2, so we're looking at residential zoning district with non-residential use in it. So there's a little bit of a different bulk regulations for those, which are all met, by the way. But the proposed site plan for consideration is for an indoor athletic facility about 80 by 126, 10,000 square feet in area. And it'll be about 29 feet in height. And then the final plat identifies 1 lot, 2 street lots for this particular development. So here's kind of the way the project looks at as a whole. This is the utility sheet. Originally, they were going to do the detention basin on the east side of the site, but city sewer capacities are kind of limited in this area. So instead of going that route, the applicant decided to take the detention basin, move it from the west side or the east side to the west side adjacent to the parking lot, and then have the storm sewer pipes eventually kind of drain over into the creek there that Simpson also owns that adjacent lot. So that's the utility plan, and then kind of up close here is what it really looks like. Access into the site will be off of West Iowa. 58 parking spaces are required. We used 1 space per 4 seats at maximum capacity. They're providing 58 parking spaces with 3 accessible spaces. So the site plan does meet those requirements. 5-foot sidewalk, I think it's 5 feet. Is it 4? 4-foot sidewalks exist on the south side of Iowa Avenue adjacent to the site. With this development, with this area kind of just around where they're going to develop the sidewalk, those will be required to be 5 feet and then transition back into a 4-foot for the rest of the way. A 5-foot pedestrian access is provided off of Iowa Avenue into the site. The site will be serviced with public utilities, which they exist in the immediate vicinity. That storm sewer will be privately owned and maintained, as it does not extend. It's not going to tie into city utilities. So it'll just go to their creek on their property. 20% of the project area is required to be open space, and they're providing 69.34, and that's as the project as a whole, not the 2.91 acres of the developed area. So it's kind of tricky when you've got, so we just, we worked with them on, well, 2.91 acres is developable area for landscaping, but for open space, clearly with that lot, it's almost 70%. So the landscape plan, here's a better view of the detention basin there just to the west of the parking area. Then there's the landscape plan. What they've proposed is in compliance with our landscape ordinance. Do apologize for the late submittal of the elevations. They changed that Thursday or Friday after we sent the packet out. So they're proposing predominantly class 1 and 2 metal, architectural metal panels and some glazing. Haven't really gone through a full review on this yet, but from what they propose, it seems to be in conformance with our site plan ordinance. Here's the final plat. If you recall, those street lots, so some of those lots jut out into E Street, and then this one juts out into Iowa. This final plat will combine those kind of stray lots, and then those street lots will be deeded to the city to finish up, what should be city right away anyway, that Simpson kind of owns but doesn't maintain. So that just kind of cleans up everything in that area. So with that, staff does recommend approval of the final plan and the site plan for Simpson Athletics Plat 1, subject to remaining staff comments. Happy to take any questions, and Monty is here to answer your questions as well.
Any questions from anybody?
Is the storm water basin going to be right next to the trail? It's hard to tell.
No, it's a little bit away from the trail.
You can kind of see those lines. Is that the trail right there to the left?
The trail's over here, and then the basin is.
Okay,
Yeah, it's up the hill.
thank you. Is that building going to look somewhat like the one that was proposed to us, I think, last month,
Looks like
Summercrest.
Summercrest?
Yeah, pretty similar in nature.
Same kind of thing. Looks like there's maybe more glass.
Yeah, they're only proposing glass on one side. I might nudge them a little bit and throw a couple.
Is that the north side, I assume?
The north side faces Iowa, so that'll be what
Yeah.
you see when you're driving on Iowa.
What's that setback from the road roughly for that building?
It needs to be 35 feet.
Well, more past that.
Yeah, it's certainly more than that. Like I said, those non-commercial uses in the residential district have a little bit different, have greater setback distances than typical.
Just a general question. Is there a required height allowance? Because I see that thing's gonna be up on a hill quite a bit, like as far as it's set back a long ways, but it's be up on a hill. I mean, is there a certain height requirement there?
I'm not sure it takes into consideration the grade, but the maximum height allowed is 40 feet in the district. What is it from street to the top of the hill? Is it 8 feet?
I'd have to look at the contours. Give me a second, I can answer your problem.
Looks like it's about 20 foot from the road. 939
Up to-
cruise elevation.
About 15 feet in elevation from the street up to the hill. And the building's on top of that.
Yep.
So it'll be 60 feet?
No, it'd be,
15 plus the building height.
street is at 925 and the building's at 940.
45-ish.
Yep.
Two separate motions again.
Yes. So the first item that we need to consider is just the final plat for Simpson Athletics Plat 1.
Make a motion to approve the final plat for Simpson Athletics Plat 1.
Second.
Marmon,
Yes.
Richie,
Yes.
Barris,
Yes.
Wordeman,
Yes.
Vice,
Yes.
Piper.
Yes.
And then the next item is approval for the site plan for Simpson Athletics Training and Competition Facility.
I'll make a motion to approve the site plan.
Thank you, Sarah.
Second.
Piper,
Yes.
Vice,
Yes.
Wordeman,
Yes.
Barris,
Yes.
Richie,
Yes.
and Marmon.
Thank you.
And then
Thank
we
you.
have a
Thank you.
consideration of possible amendments to the Code of Ordinances.
I promise these are not meant to be contentious in any way. I have a feeling one might be, but we'll find out.
No.
The first one, and we've kind of spent a lot of time since September when I started, because there's certain things that, fresh eyes can notice, and so we've talked internally about some of these things. And the first one, first to removing the phrase "act of God" and we're swapping with "natural disaster." I think neutrality in public government is important, and kind of using more catastrophic terms instead of who knows what an act of God is. And I think it's different for everyone, but everything is a catastrophe. Everything can be a catastrophe. So anyhow, that's proposal number one, is just striking act of God and replacing it with natural disaster. So it's accessory structure is damaged by catastrophe or natural disaster, and the rest of the bit stays the same for non-conforming structures. The second one was just kind of an unfinished thing, just a couple of words were missing to make it a complete sentence, and that kind of thing just bothers me. So it's missing the words lot and be. I think it just makes it more of a complete sentence and makes sense. So I don't know if you have any questions about that one. Everyone's favorite topic, so I heard, was chickens.
Chicken.
Such a fantastic.
Now that we're starting to get those permits coming in, we've sort of feel a little bit differently about how they should be permitted, approved, and what should be on that ban. So we're proposing, instead of January 1st as permit renewal date, because if you get something in December 1st, then you have to renew it again.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that
It's
makes
figured
sense.
they just renew it December 1st
Yeah.
for the following year. And then we don't really care too much about the leg bans, but we figure if there's a way to cut out the middleman, us, by looking at permit numbers, people can just take it back to the place where the chicken is from.
This is where I have a question though.
Sure, I don't think we care that much about it,
Can we
but
get an address on that van?
That is my question. And a little number seems more realistic than an address. That's my question. Like, did we do a test case scenario to see if a whole address fits on the band?
So the issue with that is the permit number is not issued until the inspection is passed.
Okay.
And one of the things that's supposed to be included on the inspection is that the chickens are banded. So the
Oh.
question then remains,
It's
how
a
can they
chicken and
have-
egg scenario.
It is. So the question became, how can they have a permit number on the band to pass inspection when a permit number has not yet been issued?
Yeah.
And so because the purpose of the band is to locate where the chicken belongs in the event of a escapee, the second best information that would be applicable is the address.
Got it. Yeah, I'm just envisioning
Really tiny font.
when I have seen bands on birds, they have been really small. So yes, I'm envisioning needing and also who's gonna print that? That's my only, that makes perfect sense. My only question or objection is it
is it
a
feasible?
realistic expectation? Is it feasible?
We can strike it. I don't think we've had a first test case with it, but again, it's just something that she brought up one day, and we'll just.
I get it.
It was kind of a
Maybe-
circular
Yeah.
conundrum that we
Yeah.
needed to fix in one form or another, and
Yeah.
we're
It
open
definitely
to-
makes sense. I'm just wondering, I know we used to, for building permits, there's a initial permit and then a final permit. Could you issue the number before as a initial permit and then finalize it? So that way they have a permit number to put on the band?
The only trouble is, it does issue a preliminary number, but to look that up, in our software, it's,
Oh.
I agree with you not having to chase that down, right? Plus, what if the chicken's out at 2 a.m. and all that? Like, if it just has an address,
That would be easier for sure.
where does this chicken belong? So, I mean, somebody will figure out how to print on that band, right? The address.
It might be a sleeve instead of a band, who knows?
Yeah.
If they wanna, we haven't, it's whatever to us, but.
We just say street
There
and
might be a suggestion back
house
there.
number and street address.
Could you do?
Name and address for the record.
Oh, do I have to? No. Could you do something where, and I guess I don't know the city systems, but almost similar to like a GIS lookup where you issue the number that goes on the band and then the person who now has the chicken can search. I mean, everybody has a phone, search in the city database
Yeah, like
and
a
then
little,
find the address that way where it's like,
Parcel ID or something.
yeah, but it's like a chicken ID, and.
Or like
I
a
don't-
barcode.
My only concern
Or your
with,
QR code, there you go.
QR code.
my only concern with formalizing this change is just that we aren't 100% confident on the feasibility, so I just wonder if there might be a consideration for tabling it or tabling this little piece of it until we can determine that and just, if so, great.
Yeah,
If
we
not,
can,
maybe there's a different solution.
are we okay with A though?
Yeah.
We're okay with it.
So it's basically annually, however you say that, the permit shall be renewed annually by it.
Sure.
That also makes sense from a workload standpoint, right? You don't wanna, you'd rather have that staggered, I assume?
I mean, another option is just not to require the leg bands.
Yeah, or I was thinking
Band's a good
require the leg
Yeah.
bands within like 30 days of issuance of the permit or something.
Well, the chickens are required to be enclosed at all times anyway, whether it's in the coop or the run. So they're already totally enclosed. So I don't know how applicable leg bands are actually going to be. And I mean, to me, it doesn't matter either way, whatever you guys wanna do, but that is another option.
But you want it to be easy too.
Yeah, I
What are
think-
other cities doing? Cause I know like that a lot of this originally came from other cities.
And I don't know the answer to that.
I'm sorry, my intern is no longer with us to answer that
To do
question.
this chicken research.
Current hour.
Let's leave E alone and then, but if you have a higher volume of your conundrum, then maybe bring E back to us.
Yeah. Or maybe just reach out to other communities
I mean,
and ask
yeah.
how they're able to sort of balance that and.
Currently, that's what because folks are asking, I don't have a permit number yet, but I have to have these bands, and we're currently telling them to put their address on them.
And no one has said I can't, so.
No one
then it
said
must
that
be
they've just acknowledged and said, okay. I mean, nobody's called back with issues.
Okay.
Granted, we've only had maybe 2 or 3 that have gotten that far. But truly, currently, they don't have a permit number to write on the leg bands, so that has been our
I mean-
temporary fix, I guess, so to
It
speak.
seems like it's been tested.
Yeah.
People could do it, okay.
We're changing our minds.
We agree.
That was helpful context.
Sorry, yeah, we just don't, I mean, that is, like I said, that is the conundrum, cause the permit number that is required doesn't exist yet, so.
For sure.
Alrighty.
You didn't think that one was gonna be the sticking point, did you?
No, I did not.
You should have known better. It's chickens.
Always cause it.
So this is one I've seen in other communities. It prevents, and this isn't to prevent the number of parking spaces, it's to prevent too many from being in a row without breaking it up by some kind of green space. So what we're proposing is requiring landscape islands every 15 spaces, so not to have 16 or more parking spaces in a row without some kind of a landscape between it. It hasn't really happened yet. I did notice a couple areas on the preliminary plat for Summercrest Hills North where they're having a lot of them in a row, and that kind of like triggered my memory of code that we used to have in Waukee. And it's just a way to increase the number of landscaping and maybe decrease the amount of pavement, and I just think it makes parking lots look a little bit nicer. It's not just one.
What is it currently required? No requirement.
There is not a requirement.
I'm currently working through this with a customer in Des Moines for a site plan, and it's a commercial tenant, industrial tenant, and they get semis and stuff in there, so I think we're working with Snyder on it, and they're trying to get rid of the islands. But they have a bunch of green space, so they're just substituting that green space, the south part of it, it's like 40 feet.
Turn radius.
Yeah, for turn radius and everything, so.
Could we say in certain, like maybe not the commercial, not the industrial, or,
No, that's where you have the parking lot, so
Yeah.
usually.
And my-
I think I'm fine with it, I think, cause then it's on the engineer to get a variance to, as part of their site plan, to reduce those islands and put that green space somewhere else. It's in the variance process probably.
Yeah, there was one project in Waukee I worked on, where we let it go, because it was in the back of a automobile repair shop where it wasn't gonna be seen, it was just, cars that were gonna be worked on, 200 feet back from the street. So, I mean, it can be reviewed on a case-by-case basis, but to help encourage additional,
Set the standard there and then make them do the variance rather than having to fight for it up front. That makes sense.
So my only other devil's advocate on it is if the developer is space constrained and that addition of the islands then makes it so that they can't meet the minimum number of parking spaces, then do they have to go to the board of, if this is changed, do they have to go to the board of adjustments in order to get a variance to?
that's one option. Otherwise, we just work internally they can replace that tree and that island somewhere else on site. And-
That would be an option.
Yeah.
Okay. I just don't wanna create something that's so cumbersome that it
No.
makes development not
And-
possible.
And more times than not, those parking, especially here, it's not, there's only, we're seeing like rows of 12, 13, 14. It's not, I haven't seen anything that's exceeding that yet. So, and I think at the pace of growth, we might not see it for a bit where it's really gonna impact things. I think it's just a way to encourage, beautifying new development. I think especially if we're gonna, with these class 1 and 2, metal buildings that while meet the code, they're not, full of brick and stone and things. I think it helps to maybe offset some of those things with, additional green space and.
I think as long as there is that ability.
Board of Adjustments allow.
Again, for example, if there were space constrained and they couldn't have enough parking spaces for the
Yeah.
building to swap without having to go to the Board of Adjustments,
Yep.
because that's just a lot of extra, like, we've been challenged that we're tough for development. So I would hate to create a scenario where we make it even harder because we create an extra barrier and an extra step.
BOA is a last resort, and I think if you talk to any of the developers since September when I've been here, I think that we're pretty flexible and we like to work with, we're not the developer's enemy.
So Summercrest Hills, I can't picture their plat for the most recent one, but I feel like that was a pretty open parking lot. Was there islands in there though?
They did have islands, yeah, so
Is it more than 15?
no,
Okay, so yeah, I mean, that's a big lot, so if,
yeah. And that was just for the athletic facility, no other retail uses yet.
Yep.
So far, it hasn't been an issue.
I like less lots, more pouring concrete, or less islands, but. Stuff.
It's a little easier to pour.
Yeah. But I see where it's breaking.
So here's one where I thought might be a little bit more, oh, maybe not this one. So part of the preliminary plating procedure, you probably can't read that, but it says, the very last sentence of the application review says, at the request of the owner or designee, the preliminary plat shall be forwarded to the commission for its review, regardless of my determination if the preliminary plat is complete. I like to bring you guys more complete things. I don't want to be forced by a developer to bring things to you. I like to make that determination. So I prefer to strike that and allow staff to make the determination when things are ready to go.
We saw an example of this
100%.
in December, so this takes us all out of that.
It wasn't a
precarious
preliminary plat,
situation.
but it's the same thing.
Concept, yeah.
So happy to take any questions on my thoughts on this one. I did ask Charlie about this one a long time ago, and he said, it's been in the code forever, and we just never took it out, so. Might be.
Ours are relevant right now.
This one is the one I now feel will be a little bit contentious. He's smiling over there. So this has happened a few times where rezonings are required by the state to send out notices to within neighbors of 200 feet. Our city code requires the same thing for preliminary plats. So in a new development, Summercrest Hills, for instance, they got their letters for the rezoning, and then they got the same things for their preliminary plat. It's a redundancy, same people getting the same things. The concept plans don't change that much between the rezoning and the preliminary plat. Additionally, as I put in your packets, tight budget year, so we're always looking for things to cut, and this is one of those things that, as postage increases, notifying for preliminary plats is not required by the state. This is the only city I've worked in that does it. So we're just proposing to, in a perfect world, it's gonna go rezoning, preliminary plat, construction drawings, final plat, where the rezoning gets the notifications for the neighbors, and then we can just move along without notifying. And it's not to hide things from the public, it's not required by the state, so cities just do it. So it's something that we're proposing. For instance, if Deer Run moves forward, that's 140 some things I think I put in there that has to be notified, so that's $100, and they already got the same notification when it rezoned to PUD. So there's a redundancy aspect to it, and then a financial component to it, and so.
I have a question. So you're wanting to eliminate the second notice pretty much, because they get the first notice on the rezoning, right? Okay, so it
In a
gives them
perfect
more,
development scenario.
so it gives them more time, at least, since they're already upfront, they're notified about it, so we're just getting rid of the reminder, basically.
Yeah, they know the development is coming with the rezoning, and then it's just ends up being their responsibility to follow it the rest of the way if they want to keep track of what's going to go on.
To devil's advocate, but I like the idea that, hey, any way we can save money makes sense, especially right now. The only issue I see is plain devil's advocate, because I can't say what I care either way, but people sometimes need to be told twice, That's the only issue that I see. Now, this is also posted too, publicly on the site, is that right?
Signage.
So there's signage for
That's
it.
just for rezonings.
So when you do the mailing or rezoning, you also post it with a sign physically.
On every public street that's adjacent to the
Yeah,
facility, yeah.
okay, so people should see that more than they even see their mail, I would think, so I think that's suffices that.
So that's our proposal. Happy to take your,
Other question or devil's advocate, would there be a scenario where there would be no rezoning, but there would be a preliminary plat? And in that case, would we then notice? Like, would that trigger it?
yeah, land that's already zoned commercial wouldn't need a rezoning if they're gonna, I'm trying to think of a, let's see.
Bill, while you think about that, I think kind of where Carrie's going is, can we make a guarantee that they'll get notified one way or the other? Whether it's rezoning or if there wasn't the need for a rezoning notification, then we do a plat.
If we're gonna, if that's gonna be the thing, we just leave it alone, which is fine. There's a parcel kind of down southeast of the school district where what's on the south side, the middle school.
Yeah.
So across that road to the south, it's already zoned R2. So it's already annexed, it's already zoned for residential development. Once they do a preliminary plat for it, there's no need to notify the neighbors, or there wouldn't be a need to notify the neighbors. But the way the code reads now, we would. So that's the one instance that, again, happy to leave it alone, but just thought we'd bring it, see what you guys say.
Or would it be beneficial in the line of saving money? It doesn't make sense to notice people consecutively. Is there maybe within a window of time, if they've already been noticed within 90 days or 180 days, or I don't know, whatever's reasonable?
The rezoning you just offer for Pickard Estates, when they file a preliminary plat, that would technically have to be noticed again, even though we just sent notices a month ago.
Okay.
That's another example.
What about when somebody, not like tonight, but when somebody wants to change a PUD?
that's a rezoning thing. That gets re-notified, that gets new sign on the property, that goes through P and Z, that goes through 3 readings at council.
So if the village comes in and they want to make a change, people will be notified about that. Yeah, I don't have any problem with this except for one thing, and the property I think we're talking about across from the schoolyard development, across the street to the east,
On the north side of 92,
north of 92.
yeah, I know which one you're talking
East of
about.
9th.
Yep.
Or 15th, I guess it is. That's been rezoned,
Correct,
right? And nothing's happened for years and years and years.
correct.
But if somebody wants to preliminary plat there, we wouldn't notify anybody.
As the code reads now, we would. If we strike that line, then we would not.
And we would essentially say, we'd already notified you when we did a rezoning, whatever year that was.
Even though you just moved in here 6 months ago and the rezoning was 3 years ago.
Yeah, that's
See, I have a problem with that.
Sure.
because they both.
And it's,
But also a little torn because when you purchase a home, back to real estate fiduciary responsibility, right? Like in that site, for example, if a homebuyer knows that it's zoned R2, like that comes with the understanding that it won't necessarily just be a field forever.
That's true.
I'm gonna bring something up here as part of that lot that he's talking about.
see, most people don't know what the land behind them is zoned.
I know, and that's a whole nother.
And quite frankly, for $100, or there's probably only about 8 houses there.
But
Why take a bloody nose for not
drag it over, it's a
notifying
second
people that
screen.
there's gonna be a change? Cause
But I
it just
would
honks
say
them off,
the
really.
counter argument to that is what if they didn't, what is it going to help? Because if we notice them at a preliminary plat, if it's zoned R2 and the preliminary plat meets all of the city requirements, it's more than likely going to be approved anyway. So did it serve any purpose?
So this is,
If those 8 people come in on that and are not happy with the plat, they have no leg to stand on for the most part because it's already been approved to be the residential.
I think the value is to just let people know what's going on without them getting all excited because one day there's earth movers in there moving earth and they didn't know a thing about it.
this was very poorly
Who's gonna
planned.
tell them if the city doesn't tell them? The developer isn't.
Back to your point, that's a very poorly planned subdivision, for lack of a better term. That should have been, there should be a connection point in there. But, to Carrie's point, they should expect and I would think they should expect residential in there at some point. I know Snyder's been playing around with different layouts with somebody, but we don't
I
like
would
it.
say
But
if I was a
that property has
homeowner,
been there for years and years and years and years and years with nothing done to it.
well, but
When
so
it developed, you buy it.
to devil's advocate at that point, if I was a home buyer across the street there to the east and I saw all that dilapidated junk cleaned up like it has been, I'd be pretty satisfied. I mean, you don't know what's going on there until you get involved. You see something going on, that's when you get involved. Most people don't get involved until they see something going on. And good, bad, or ugly, I mean, stuff's happening.
Sounds like we might want to leave it alone.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you can never keep the public too informed.
You cannot, and that's part of it. 2 notices might not be enough for most people, I mean, so
Yes.
where do you stop?
Maybe if you'll just brainstorm a little bit more on like Carrie's idea of if it's been 3 years since we notified them of rezoning, then we would do it, or something that would cut down on how many you have to do, so that you're not doing one and 5 days later, you're doing another
Right,
one.
and we don't have a
That
problem
does seem
with that.
excessive.
Yeah.
Getting rid of that.
Does it have to be a mailing? Could you just like post it somewhere or, does it have to be a
Zoning.
mailing? Like that
Do
would
that for
save
one
the
and then
money,
next
but
one
still
get
like
one
keep
and
people
then
informed if
one.
you could like post it somewhere or.
Can it just be a public notice instead of a mailing? Like a
unlike P and Z's.
You go knock on their doors.
Because fuel costs a lot of money too.
So
I was gonna say, with
And labor.
staff salaries, that'll cost more than the postage.
Labor's more than the postage.
So the second part of that line is,
Overtime every day.
it says, or by posting notices on the, it says tracked. So we could strike the mailings and have them do a rezoning, preliminary plat sign, like a rezoning sign, if that's something that we could explore
Might
too.
be a good idea.
And then honestly, that would probably be the developer cost, not the city
Correct.
cost as
Exactly,
well,
they
right?
do pay for that.
That's a good idea.
I was just like we changed the signs from
I'm sure it
you
is,
putting
but
up
the
the
city's not gonna
signs
pay
to
for
the
it.
developer putting
Yeah, I'm
up
not
the
paying,
signs.
not paying for that.
Right.
Here.
So so the developer might say, can we mail it instead and I'll pay for it?
Sure.
I mean, like,
If they
you
wanna do the
know,
notifications,
pay for
perfect,
it.
send me a
Yeah.
copy of it and then,
Yeah.
We like that.
okay, so we'll strike the mailing and keep a notice on site.
Yep.
Okay, I'll update that. Do you wanna see it again, or is it okay to move forward?
Okay.
Move forward with that.
Cool, that's a nice compromise. This one relates to stormwater management plans. No architect or PLS signs off on those things, only civil engineers do. There's no point even saying architects or landscape architects, shall be certifying stormwater management. They just don't ever do it. If one of those, Monty Appitt gets a PLS, he doesn't sign off on stormwater management plans. John Hanson does, his buddy at Snyder. So it's kind of just pointless to have those two words in there. It leaves it up for crappy,
Interpretation.
bad engineers or bad, I can't think of the right word.
If someone not experienced doing the calculations.
Yeah, and that just causes headache with, it adds costs because we would send those to Snyder or HR Green to review,
Oh, well then.
all that back and forth.
There you go.
So I just,
Certified by an engineer. Yep, we
Yeah.
agree.
this one relates to, I don't even know if this one needs to come to you because it's not a zoning amendment, but Tara and Mike were talking. This one relates to sidewalk repairs and the city, because sidewalk repair is the homeowner's responsibility. So here it just kind of says council will serve notice. So we think that maybe council, the code enforcement officer or other municipal officer, Mike Visser or Kevin, what's his name? Kevin Michaels, can also serve notice, and then, the council or their designee can require this.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Keep council out of it and let us,
What would they
let us,
wanna do?
For sure,
Let us
yeah.
do our
I'm sure
jobs.
they would appreciate being not
Talked
included in
about
that.
the details and working down.
Right.
any
We
questions, concerns on that one? Alright. This one, I think, is the last one. This one kind of came to light because it was something that Wade worked on with the development agreement for Quickstar. There's, 8, 9 gas stations in town. They all have steel columns for their gas canopies. Part of the DA that was introduced late, when Wade was here, was that he asked them to wrap the canopy, the columns in brick or stone. And kind of his recommendation was take this to P and Z and see if it sticks. Who knows when we'll see the next gas station in town? It might be quite a while, so this will be has the potential to be set in stone for a year or two before you even see something different. But it's a nice way to increase the aesthetics of gas stations where the canopies or the columns that support the canopy are wrapped in brick or stone as opposed to just a metal column.
One step towards being Pella.
Yep. So is Quickstar doing that?
They are.
Oh,
How much more does it cost?
I don't care enough about it, but
My first thought when I read this was this could be something that would be a tool of leverage in a developer agreement as
Sure.
opposed to including in the code. So
not every.
like, if you do this, we will give you this or do this, or we would,
Not every a DA is not gonna be included with every gas station development, so it's either you do as a negotiation as part of the site plan review process or something different. It was just something that, he brought and figured we'd give it a shot. I don't care much either way, but I did notice that they're all wrapped, or they're all steel posts, and with Quickstar doing doing brick or stone, I thought we might introduce it and see what happens.
I don't know, I don't really feel like it
I've
would
never been
matter one
offended
way
by
or
the
the
steel post.
Yeah, I know, I guess it just doesn't really feel like it matters that much, like, it's a gas station.
I like it because, I mean, it's gonna cost a little bit more for them to do, but aesthetics and maintenance wise, I mean, if you have brick or stone, it doesn't rust and, you know, you get a pole out there and our exposed elements for 10 years, and that thing could look like a spotted cow.
That's true.
And it's not easy to paint those. I mean, down on the floor, it's not fun to scrape and paint those, so.
Well, the problem is if they're brick and they get hit,
Insurance pays for new ones.
yeah, they're probably not real easy to repair. I mean,
It's actually pretty easy to repair brick. I mean,
is it?
yeah. Probably better to hit the brick than the metal.
I feel like the steel posts are just like kind of
It's kind of like a bollard,
invert
too. Kind of like a bollard, you know, keeps you farther away from the structure of it too.
Sure, like you've said, are we gonna get another gas station in the next couple of years?
So it doesn't really
Yeah,
matter one way or the other.
6 is, as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, for a canopy of quick start size, you're probably looking at, I don't know, maybe Justin would be the one that has that answer, but he does block and stone, but I mean, maybe an extra $8,000 to $10,000 for a big canopy like that, but
is it
beans on,
the west, I mean, every side of town has one, and
yeah.
where's the next one gonna go?
Never say never.
That-
I'm okay with it, cause if they don't want it, then they can go to BOA.
yeah. No strong opinions.
I
honestly don't care.
a huge horse in that game.
Me neither. I don't have an opinion one way or the
All
other.
right, that sounds good. Well, let's
Just leave it in there. Put it in there.
see we'll see if council strikes it or see if they
There
agree.
you go.
Okay.
Leave it at that. That's all I got.
The
So
same discussion all over.
So do we need to make a motion for those?
uh,
Consider possible?
I think you do.
yeah, let's do it. Just do since we
With the changes that we discussed, like can a motion be made just
We
with the
recommended
changes
them all,
discussed?
but number 9, and that, we render no opinion.
I was
Well,
gonna,
and there was a
He's gonna put it
one,
in.
did we have a change or did we find a
Yeah.
resolution?
it was
Oh,
the preliminary plat one. We're off.
Yeah,
So I would just say recommend approval as amended by planning commission, and we'll get that squared away before we take them to council.
I'll make a motion to approve as discussed with the changes that we discussed tonight.
Second.
Wordman,
yes.
Marmon,
Yes.
Richie,
Yes.
Ferris,
Yeah,
Piper,
Yes.
Vice.
Yes.
Okay, so I know that now we are on to comments and Al was itching to add something on.
something, I want just to discuss a bit, and I want y'all to think about. It relates to city parks, future city parks. As I've said before, we are not building any city parks where we're building houses. All the city parks are in the old core, not in any of the new developments. And if you look, a lot of kids would have to go a long ways to get to a city park.
Does,
And the city, just wait, and the city has budget problems. I would like a discussion of us recommending to the city council that they change some ordinances as appropriate so that future developments, the developer has a choice of either setting aside land for a city park with the city's agreement that they will accept that land, or they may contribute to a fund, a special fund, which be used only for acquisition of city parkland.
And not for maintenance of existing parkland.
Not maintenance, nope, future acquisition of future parks. I believe other cities do this. I would appreciate if we could find out if they do that. But 2 city managers ago, this was actually discussed as a possibility in the city council meeting. But it just never went anywhere. I don't think they ever said, no, we're not gonna do it. I just don't think there was ever any action taken.
Yeah.
But I'm getting frustrated, and I guess the city current budget situation maybe makes it even worse. So we need an alternative. We can't keep going on, adding houses, adding residences, and no parks, in my opinion. And this is a way of approaching that. Developers in the past have, in some cases, donated property as the development has been done. That hadn't been done for a long time. And the current interim city manager, Doug Byland, told me at one time that the city of Indianola has never purchased a city park. Never. So I'm trying to create a mechanism where we can get more parkland to go with these developments and give developers a choice of how they want to participate.
So specifically with the residential.
Yeah, just residential,
Yeah.
in residential development.
So,
Parkland only applies to residential development.
so I can think of 2 instances. One, Kentucky Ridge. They had a park in their thing.
Pickleball.
I
court.
remember, yeah, okay. So I remember that there was discussion in that meeting of, you know, of that park, and it was getting, they had access to moats, I think it was, or whatever, you know, but like you said, it's a long ways away, across 65, 69, and that's not safe. Also in Emerald Bay, are they putting a park in?
What is that technically?
Will it be dedicated to the city?
It will be dedicated to the city.
Okay,
yeah.
the city will
It's a
take it.
park feature around their expanded silt basin, isn't it? Stormwater basin?
Yeah, the pond will be, the pond will be the feature with trails around it, and I don't know if there'll be a play space, but there'll be, you know, benches and pagodas and.
I mean, they were gonna have to have a stormwater basin anyway.
Mhm.
I mean, anybody can look at that and say, yeah, that water's gonna go helling down through there if you don't stop it somehow. And so I think it's an expanded water feature, which is probably to their benefit also. And parks don't have to be a negative to a new development. In fact, some of the attractions and some of the attractions for communities are their city parks.
But it looks like Colorado, I mean, all the parks land they have, I mean, it's part of their growth and what they pride on, I think, but I think even a third one would be this development we were talking about there, the Ball Yard Lofts, I remember, or isn't it called Ball Yard Lofts? Schoolyard, whatever.
Schoolyard?
Yeah, that predates me, so I wasn't.
Okay, well,
And I don't know.
I think on that one, it was a discussion about parks and they said, you know, they're gonna use the trail for access to the parks, you know. I think when we say parks, parks is very general and the fact that, you know, like this is some benches, like kids aren't gonna go play on a bench. You know, like we need to get some like playground equipment for parks. And so that's where I think definition is where it needs to come into play.
I also
I
think,
think it's a great way to generate funds.
I also think it needs to be very, very thoughtful, because I 100% agree with your sentiments there, but I also have been on first of all, the city has to agree that they're gonna accept the dedication, because I've been on the developer side where the city has said, you know, we want a park, but we won't accept it. So you have to build this park and then you have to maintain it. And that's an ongoing expense as well as a liability, and the liability is the bigger concern. So just how do we address that? How do we make sure like the city predeterminately agrees to accept that
And maintaining.
and maintain it? And I think the other thing is being intentional about how it's structured so that we don't end up with a whole bunch of tiny little unusable green spaces, and instead we have, you know, whether it's a per acre, because some of our housing some of those projects are only a few lots at a time. So if each of those has to have a parkland space, it might be small and unusable. So it might be more of an area ratio.
Yeah.
I love your idea. I just
Or they
I'm concerned about being
could
thoughtful.
contribute money to it.
But to
See,
Carrie's point, with every single chunk, like if you think about that one on the east side of town, like what they did like a couple streets each time.
Yeah.
I mean, we were on what, number 6?
You're talking about Ashton Park?
Yeah.
So that would have been addressed as part of like Ashton Park Plat 1 or the preliminary
Yeah,
plat.
and
So you don't
preliminary
need a
plat.
park for each individual final plat. It would be for Ashton Park as a whole as developed. So however many lots Ashton Park had initially for the preliminary plat, say it's 150, you would use that calculation for the plat as an entirety to calculate the number, the space, the acres of parkland that would be required. Not every 20 houses requires a parkland. It's as a whole. So same thing with Quail Meadows and Summercrest and things like that. I will say, I'm not sure the last time you looked at our parkland dedication ordinance, but I'll email it to you guys tomorrow. We do allow fees in lieu of parkland dedication to be used to acquire parkland within a half mile of the proposed development. So there's that one option. And I know that our Parks and Rec director is sort of leaning that way with trying to get developers to pay a fee in lieu of, because his budget cuts are so significant this year that he doesn't have staff or time or money to do the materials to
Yeah.
maintain what we have already.
Well, and I'm sure it's a lot easier to maintain one large space than a bunch of small spaces too, right?
Yeah. So Emerald Bay or not Emerald, Kentucky Ridge for a second. They've got that big development coming on. I can't say what it is because I don't know. But they want them to get rid of the pickleball court. So somewhere along the lines, that was that 0.19 acres was agreed upon with the city and the developer. Again, it predates me. I probably wouldn't have agreed to it as parkland dedication. I would have kind of nudged them in the way of fee in lieu of, because that 0.18, they're required, if this was starting over, they would be required to dedicate 1.869 acres of parkland instead they're dedicating 0.19. So now that they want to get rid of that, because the city agreed to it, they're only going to give us a fee in lieu of for that 0.19 acres and not the 1.96 acres that should have been dedicated. So that's kind of an issue that if I were here back then, I would have paid us instead, because
What's an example of the price tag of a fee?
in Waukee, it was $35,000 an acre for parkland. Here, the developer has to acquire an appraiser that we agree to it, and then they'll give us a number and we'll agree to that fee in lieu of. So there's no set number right now that we have, but in Waukee, it was $35,000 an
So the
acre.
developer in Waukee would write a check to who for 35 grand?
The city of Waukee.
After they've already got the expense of developing the land.
Yeah, so they'd have to pay $100,000 for the sanitary sewer connection fees, the parkland dedication fees, the warning siren fees, things like that. And then if they want to pay a fee, if they're gonna do a big residential development of single families, typically they'll throw a park in there. But if they're gonna do a
Typically, I'm just curious, typically because by choice or by zoning requirements, I wonder.
well, if you're gonna do a higher density, townhome development on a confined space, fee in lieu of makes more sense. Because you can't squeeze a park in 10 acres of property that has, 60 townhomes in it or something. So you can space out single family better, where you can provide enough space to put in a park for single family. So I know Cody and Lee are supposed to get us an appraised number for that parkland. It's nowhere near what it's supposed to be, but it was already agreed upon.
So
The other factor to consider is our comprehensive plan. So when we redid that 6 years ago.
Some nice dots there.
Yeah, so we had this discussion and it was pretty lengthy. And so I think we need to revisit that too, because one of the pieces that stuck out for me was we were talking about the golf courses were considered parks. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
it shouldn't be.
shouldn't count, yeah.
right? Like one is private and membership and those kinds of things. And so I think when we won't do this, we might want to take a look at the comprehensive plan as well, where we landed on that, because to your point, there were some dots and we said this is what we're gonna do and didn't come to fruition.
I'm working on an infill development project with just preliminary discussions that they're trying to figure out how to do a townhome development. And there's already a couple of parks around it, and their initial ask was some greenway space on the private street in front of it. And it's not park lane. People can walk it and stuff, but it's not what we're looking for. So I had to explain to the developer, it's like, here's a code on alternatives. We can't say, hey, we want a fee in lieu of, it's by state law, we can't do that. But you can encourage, hey, look at this, and
here's what you would be required to do, or
This is-
here's your alternatives.
You don't have space in here for a park. Here's our calculations as to how much, a fee you can pay to satisfy that requirement. And then Doug can use it to maintain parks or acquire other parkland or whatever.
So Al, you're looking for something different than that though, something beyond that. That's what's existing and you're looking for something beyond that.
We don't wanna what you're saying is we don't want that money to go towards Doug maintaining, we want new.
Yep,
Or-
not new, and it seems like, Ashton Park is a really good example. It should have been done at the very beginning of that project. That, Quail Meadows, there's another, and if you look at those places, there's no place for those kids to play except in each other's backyards or in the street, and I think we're failing on that as a community. And we go through these, like you say, the comprehensive plan, and there's some nice dots put in there, but it ought to go beyond nice dots in the comprehensive plan. And if we're not gonna do it, then quit doing the damn dots in the comprehensive plan. Let's quit kidding ourselves.
So I'll read a section of the parkland alternative code. The third one says, in lieu of dedicating parkland, the developer may request the ability to make a cash payment into a fund to be used for future park improvements or parkland acquisition for a park facility that is within 1/2 mile of the proposed development. So that's an option that they can pay, and then Doug can use it to.
I'd like to take the maintenance part out.
I mean, that's a good point. Quail Meadows, I live over there and there's nothing and especially with all those D.R. Horton houses jam packed in there, there's nothing for them to do
My
except for.
13-year-old walks to Buxton.
Yeah.
My 13-year-old walks to Buxton.
Yeah.
From there.
And-
What are you talking about?
I don't think this code is that old.
A 5-year-old
so
has no place.
I'm pretty sure that, it predates me, but I don't buy how much, but the parkland dedication code is pretty new. And so that's probably why you don't see a lot of them in the early Quail Meadows and Ashton Parks, and that's why we're just kind of trying to play catch up. And
Yeah.
so it's unfortunate that I wasn't there earlier, but you
So
can.
where do we go from here?
So if what we have was updated just to clarify that it can only be used for new acquisition, is that kind of what you would be looking for?
Now, or is it clear that the developer could use property in lieu of cash payment?
Yeah, they can dedicate parkland to us.
As long as the city is willing to accept it, is that clear?
Correct.
So why,
Because I
in your
know,
experience, why has the city said we don't want to accept it?
Because they don't want to maintain it.
Well, that or it's just not.
Does Doug wanna maintain it if he can get a new park?
Does he have the funds to maintain it?
That's the other. That's what his.
That's the
Yeah,
only bad part
Want
about
or
not.
can't, yes.
but let's don't think short term here, because I don't think that legislation is gonna last.
As far as the
Which
budget,
legislation, the property tax?
Yeah. The legislation that they passed that really screwed the fast-growing counties and cities. I don't think that's gonna last. I don't think we can depend on that lasting.
I think something new is gonna pass and it might be even worse.
Yeah, but
I hate to say that, but the rural, this is a big discussion, but the very rural communities have a lot of pull and they're not growing.
I know, and it's just like our former city manager said. It's easier to go back there because they don't have a budget problem, because they're not growing.
So
If you, even one of our supervisors pointed out just that it is unfair, conservative supervisor, it is unfair for counties that are growing at 10% to be limited to 2 or 3% property tax increase because you cannot keep up with the demand. And the areas that are not growing, it doesn't matter to them because their expenses
But
aren't
that's
going
where,
up.
that's where I don't think it's probably a short-term issue, is that I think there's more state there's more state representatives in the rural communities that aren't growing. So when it comes to voting on the bills, they have the votes.
Now, legislation structures do not stay same composition forever. They
But
change.
they're still gonna, the districts probably won't change, so they'll still come from the same rural areas. That's, I wish we had a crystal ball.
It's a mess.
And also Jake made a comment, you made a comment earlier about commercial properties bringing in higher tax revenue because of the rollback. There's also talk about the residential rollback being eliminated as well, which would level the playing. So there's so many, we just have no idea.
So can we, from here, where do you, Bill, think we need to take this in terms of, I think what you've heard from us is we wanna propose something to city council potentially along the lines of we want the money to be, if it's a donation into a fund, it's for a new park and that the city accepts it and that the city can accept maintenance of it. Like, is that our proposal?
Yeah, I mean, on the preliminary plat, there would be an outlot that would be deeded to the city for public parkland. That could be, I keep going back to Waukee because it's, where it's pretty expansive, but an actual trail system and connecting that trail system to the Raccoon River Valley Trail. There's one part of town that we accepted that as parkland. There's another part where a person was just, a couple of dog parks and a little walking trail around the development. They wanted that as parkland and we denied that. So it's explored on a case by case basis. The infill.
Council can decide whether to accept it or not.
The infill development, I'm not gonna accept a little greenway as walking space. We want, there's already parks in the area, we prefer cash instead of that. That development on the southeast side of town, that's adjacent to, there's a softball fields back there, like where the football field is, across the street to the east. There's like a zigzag property down there, and it's almost a whole 40. So I don't know what the park situation is out there, if Doug would want a new park. But full parkland dedication requirements will apply to that when it develops, either in a full fee in lieu of, or an outlot within that development to be used as a park. It's on a case by case basis per the development. There's a calculation in the code that says per however many units are proposed. There's a person per unit, and you just.
Calculation.
It's a multiplication problem that determines the number of acres that are
I think
required.
that, feel confident that our staff is, pro parks and, we have the right staff in the right place for the park development. Staff has been turning over a lot lately, so we can't rely on that, but, I mean, I think that definitely needs to be brought up at some point, cause the thinking about Quail Meadows, there's just nothing out there and
And that's probably because the parkland dedication
previous.
wasn't
Right.
in the city code back
Yeah,
then.
those are older developments, that just take a long time to develop, obviously.
But to Al's point, the parkland dedication being new, do we wanna make a recommendation that says the money can't just be used for maintenance of existing parks?
Well, that part of the code that it really says to be used for land acquisition within a half mile. I mean, you could try to force them in that direction. But at the end of the day, it's really Doug's decision. But the code is there that says that fees in lieu of will be used for either future park maintenance or future land acquisition for a park within a half mile of the development. I think that's a little bit too, I don't know, too high. I can't think of the word. There's not enough information to take the council right now. It's a discussion with Doug. Maybe bring Doug here one night and see what his thoughts are. But I don't know when the next big residential development will come in and but it's something worth talking to Doug about.
Would that
When's he
be
put his old hat back on?
Yeah.
May 28th.
Okay.
So would that be helpful? To ask him to come here and have a conversation
Sure.
after May 28th?
Well, I mean, and we're all aware of what the city budget problems are, and yes, parks take maintenance, but
So I have a question, like with the DR,
once those developments are done, they're never gonna get a park in them.
so that DR
Gotta get it in at the beginning.
that,
Yeah, I'm surprised.
so that whole thing, when would that,
That was fairly recently.
What?
The DR Court development?
Summercrest?
Is that what that
Yeah,
is?
Summercrest.
So when would a parkland dedication had to have come in play there,
It would have been dedicated during Plat 1 or the preliminary plat.
which was probably like 7+ years ago, I'm gonna guess?
Was it that long ago?
That one probably was.
I think
Okay.
so, because I think that was when I was still working in community.
Okay. So that did predate the
It's
parkland
old
dedication?
preliminary plats, so as plats are getting developed, you know, if they're on plat 5 now or whatever, plat 4, I think, then you can't do anything about
So
it.
it's a little late.
Yeah.
So-
Well, we're forward thinking and future.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank
To
you.
discuss it.
Important, I think.
And then I think we have project updates. My computer went to sleep. Updates and permits. We're good? Nothing?
Good.
Okay.
New city manager starts May 28th.
I saw that it
That's pretty quick, actually.
Yeah.
He's got to move from Brookings and, wow. Okay. All right, I think we just need a motion to adjourn if anyone would like to do that.
Don't move.
second.
Have we got a house for sale?
All in favor?
All in favor?
I come into town. Might be an opportunity.